The cyber attack on Magnus Carlsen's foundation came at 3 a.m. on a Friday morning, sophisticated enough to bypass professional security systems, but sloppy enough to leave digital fingerprints pointing directly back to Helsinki technology conspiracy partners. But what Magnus discovered while tracing the attack would expose something far more sinister than corporate espionage. Norwegian Transport Minister Knut Andersen had been systematically installing surveillance systems throughout Oslo's public transportation network, turning every bus, train, and tram into a data collection point for the corporate partners who had just tried to silence Magnus electronically. You see, what Magnus was about to uncover would prove that the battle against Nordic corruption had evolved beyond stealing money or manipulating legal systems. The corporate-government alliance was now building comprehensive surveillance infrastructure that could monitor and control the daily movements of every Norwegian citizen. And the Oslo Smart City conspiracy was just the beginning of a technological nightmare that threatened democratic society itself. Magnus sat in his secure office, studying the technical analysis of the cyber attack with Dr. Chen, who had flown in from Switzerland to help investigate the corporate retaliation. The attack vectors were sophisticated, targeting not just his foundation's computer systems, but also attempting to access personal devices, communication networks, and even his chess training databases. This wasn't random corporate harassment, Dr. Chen explained, analyzing the malware signatures. This attack was designed to gather intelligence about your investigation methods, contact networks, and future plans. Someone wanted comprehensive information about how you've been exposing Nordic political corruption. But the attackers had made a crucial mistake. Their malware included corporate identification codes that traced directly back to the Helsinki technology companies Magnus had been investigating. More importantly, the attack had been routed through Norwegian government communication networks that required official authorization to access. Magnus realized that the cyber attack wasn't just corporate retaliation, it was a joint operation between the Helsinki technology conspiracy and Norwegian government officials. The digital fingerprints led directly to Transport Minister Knut Andersen's administrative network, revealing his coordination with corporate partners in surveilling Magnus. They're not just trying to silence you, Dr. Chen observed, studying the surveillance protocols embedded in the attack software. They're testing surveillance capabilities that they plan to deploy more broadly against Norwegian citizens. Magnus began investigating Andersen's role in coordinating surveillance systems throughout Norwegian public transportation, discovering that the transport minister had approved contracts worth over 200 million kroner for smart city mobility, solutions that were actually comprehensive citizen monitoring systems. The public transportation surveillance network was extraordinarily invasive. Every bus contained facial recognition cameras, audio recording devices, and passenger tracking systems that could identify individual citizens, monitor their conversations, and track their movement patterns throughout Oslo. This wasn't transportation efficiency technology. It was population control infrastructure. Citizens deserve modern, efficient public transportation, Andersen had declared during recent budget hearings, but his private communications revealed a very different motivation. The Transportation Surveillance Network provides unprecedented access to citizen behavior patterns and social interaction. Data. Magnus discovered that Andersen's surveillance systems collected far more information than necessary for transportation management. Facial recognition databases that included political affiliations and social connections. Audio recording systems that analyzed private conversations for keywords of interest. Even biometric sensors that monitored passenger stress levels and emotional states. But the most disturbing element was the coordination between Andersen's surveillance network and the Helsinki technology companies Magnus had been fighting. The transportation data was being shared with corporate partners who used it for behavioral analysis, predictive modeling, and what they called social optimization protocols. The Oslo transportation data provides excellent baseline information for broader population management initiatives. One intercepted. Corporate communication revealed. Combined with other surveillance sources, We can develop highly accurate models for predicting and influencing citizen behavior patterns. Magnus realized that Andersen wasn't just violating citizen privacy. He was helping build technological infrastructure for social control that could eliminate democratic freedoms entirely. The Transportation Surveillance Network was a prototype for comprehensive population monitoring that could be expanded to cover every aspect of daily life. The investigation revealed Andersen's coordination with other Nordic alliance ministers in implementing similar surveillance systems across multiple countries. The smart city initiatives being promoted throughout the Nordic region were actually coordinated surveillance infrastructure designed to monitor and control citizen behavior on an unprecedented scale. The Norwegian model has proven very effective, Andersen had written to his alliance partners. Transportation surveillance provides natural coverage for citizen monitoring without raising political suspicions about privacy violations. Magnus found evidence that similar transportation surveillance networks were being implemented in Stockholm, Copenhagen, Helsinki, and Reykjavik, all coordinated through the same corporate partners and using identical monitoring technologies. The Nordic Ministerial Alliance wasn't just stealing public funds. They were building technological infrastructure for regional, authoritarian control. But Magnus discovered something even more alarming in Andersen's private files. The Oslo Smart City conspiracy extended far beyond transportation surveillance. Plans for monitoring systems in schools, hospitals, shopping centers, and even residential buildings were already being developed and tested. Phase 2 implementation includes comprehensive urban monitoring through integrated smart city infrastructure. One classified planning document revealed educational facilities, healthcare systems, and residential complexes will be equipped with monitoring capabilities that provide complete citizen surveillance coverage. Magnus understood that the Nordic Alliance was using public infrastructure investments to build a comprehensive surveillance state that would eliminate privacy and democratic freedoms entirely. Citizens would be monitored constantly, their behaviors analyzed and influenced through technological systems they didn't even know existed. The corporate partnerships revealed the economic incentives driving this technological authoritarianism. Helsinki technology companies were paying enormous fees for access to citizen surveillance data, while also providing technological capabilities that enhanced government control over populations. The arrangement benefited corrupt politicians and corporate partners while enslaving the citizens they were supposed to serve. As Magnus compiled evidence against Andersen, he discovered the human impact of the transportation surveillance network. Citizens were already being targeted for political harassment based on their movement patterns, conversation content, and social connections identified through public transportation monitoring. One particularly disturbing case involved a Norwegian journalist whose investigation into municipal corruption had been discovered through transportation surveillance analysis. Her movement patterns had been tracked, her conversations had been recorded, and her social connections had been mapped, all through the smart transportation systems Andersen had installed supposedly for citizen convenience. Magnus realized that Andersen's surveillance network wasn't just preparing for future population control. It was already being used to suppress political opposition and intimidate citizens who challenged government corruption. The technology was actively destroying democratic participation and citizen rights. But the most shocking discovery came from analyzing Andersen's coordination with international surveillance networks. The Oslo Smart City conspiracy was connected to similar programs being developed worldwide, creating a global infrastructure for technological authoritarianism that transcended national boundaries. The European Digital Authoritarianism project requires seamless integration between national surveillance systems. One intercepted communication revealed. Nordic alliance coordination provides an excellent model for broader international implementation. Magnus understood that his fight against Norwegian political corruption had uncovered a threat to democratic society that extended far beyond individual countries or even the Nordic region. The technological surveillance infrastructure being built could eliminate human freedom on a global scale. As Magnus prepared his evidence against Andersen, he received intelligence about corporate retaliation that made him understand the enormous dangers he was facing. The Helsinki technology companies and their government partners had surveillance capabilities that could track his every movement, monitor his communications, and potentially manipulate his public image through sophisticated technological warfare. "They know everything about your investigation," Dr. Chen warned as they analyzed the cyber attack aftermath. "Location patterns, communication networks, even your daily routines. This level of surveillance gives them significant advantages in planning countermeasures against any evidence you release." But Magnus also realized that the surveillance capabilities that made him vulnerable also made the corporate government alliance vulnerable. Every digital action they took left traces that could be analyzed and exposed, revealing the scope of their technological conspiracy and the threat they posed to democratic society. The evidence against Knut Andersen was comprehensive and terrifying. He had built comprehensive surveillance infrastructure throughout Norwegian public transportation. He had coordinated with corporate partners to monitor and control citizen behavior. Most seriously, he had participated in a technological conspiracy that threatened to eliminate democratic freedoms entirely. Magnus understood that exposing the Oslo smart city conspiracy would trigger the most dangerous retaliation yet from the Nordic alliance and their corporate partners. They had invested enormous resources in building surveillance capabilities and wouldn't hesitate to use those capabilities against anyone who threatened their technological control systems. But Magnus Carlsen had never backed down from challenging powerful opponents who threatened the things he valued most. He had spent his career proving that strategic thinking and careful analysis could overcome any adversary, regardless of their apparent technological advantages. The war against Nordic political corruption had become a battle for human freedom itself. The technological surveillance infrastructure, being built by corrupt politicians, and their corporate partners represented a threat to democratic society that required immediate exposure and resistance. As Magnus prepared to release his evidence against Andersen and the Oslo smart city conspiracy, he understood that this revelation would force the technological authoritarians to reveal more of their capabilities in their efforts to suppress the truth. But every surveillance action they took would provide more evidence of their systematic betrayal of democratic principles and citizen rights. The battle for technological freedom was about to begin, and Magnus Carlsen was ready to lead the resistance against forces that threatened to eliminate human autonomy through comprehensive surveillance and behavioral control systems. The Oslo smart city conspiracy was about to be exposed, and the world would learn that some opponents of authoritarianism can't be monitored, controlled, or silenced through technological surveillance and digital manipulation.